Welcome everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Michael. I use they, them pronouns. I am a farmer and teacher at the farm school, which is in north central Massachusetts. And I work a lot with children, showing them what we're doing at the farm. And one of the things I love sharing with the youth is about mushrooms. I've been working with mushrooms for a little while now, and I consider them to be my teachers. And also, yeah, I just love learning about them, love eating them. And through mushrooms, I've made some really awesome friends and get opportunities like this to get to meet other people and connect. So really excited to share with you all today.
Good afternoon. My name's Dina. You can call me Dee. I use she and her. I'm just so excited to talk about mushrooms today with you guys. They're really the great connectors on planet Earth. We're gonna talk about what mushrooms are and how you can grow them at home. There's really so many things to learn about and celebrate about with fungi. We're just gonna focus on growing today. I have been growing mushrooms for a few years now and really just enjoy it. There's so much to explore and learn from them. And they really just inspire me in so many ways. So we'll start with what is a mushroom? So fungi are their own kingdom, or I like to say kingdom, because kingdom implies ruling over something, and really they're like kin. They're the great connectors of everything. They're separate from plants and from animals. They are more closely related to us than they are to plants, actually. We have a common ancestor called an opisthocont. And fungi are very ancient organisms. They've been on this earth for probably 1 billion years. They've survived 5 mass extinctions. So they're really diverse and really great at figuring out how to persist. They come in all shapes and sizes and colors, and all of these pictures here are of mushrooms that I have found in Rhode Island. These are all things that we can find outside here. So any sort of organic matter that is on this earth, there's probably a mushroom to recycle that. So often when we think of mushrooms or fungi, we think of molds and things that rot, those decomposers. And there's lots of those. But there's also fungi that are partnered with the plants. And scientists think that for every one plant, there are 10 fungi that are partnered with them. They're connected to the roots of these plants, and they help the plants to get more water and more nutrients. And in exchange for that, the plants will share products of photosynthesis or sugars with the fungus. You can see on that poster over there, we have the trees above ground and the fungus above ground, but that web, that mycelium of the fungus is all within the forest floor or under the lawn or wherever it's growing. So a fungal body is that white mass, the mycelium. It starts off as a little cell and it gets bigger and bigger and grows through the substrate and makes a mushroom that we can all see and recognize. But for most of its life, it is hidden from view. Some mushrooms are parasites, like the one that infects the fly.
Anybody seen that show, The Last of Us? It's a show about, it's like there are zombies that get parasitized with the fungi. That show, if you ever seen it, it was inspired by a really cool mushroom that I really like. It was one of the first I got to experience growing called cordyceps. And it's a really powerful mushroom. And in like tropical Asian countries, this mushroom parasitizes some insects, especially some ants. And it kind of turn the ants into zombies and make the ants walk on a tree, and then kind of the ants get stuck to the tree, and kind of the fungi eats the ant, and then eventually a mushroom will pop out of the body, a little bit like the fly there.
Lucky for us, we are very different than ants, and we have different blood, so we don't have to worry about that happening to us.
Yeah, those are actually beneficial to us. Like cordyceps have amazing properties that are good for humans to consume.
So fungi don't have stomachs. They secrete chemicals and break down the food out of them. They break them down and then absorb it. So they're really tied to the environment. What they like to eat is also where they live. And looking at the mushrooms that we see around us can tell a story. Is that a mushroom that's partnered with the plants maybe? Or maybe it's one that's a decomposer, or maybe it's one that's a parasite. So getting to know the mushrooms and what they're doing, understanding more about them can teach us about the environment.
So here we can kind of see a little bit of a simplified version of the life cycle of the mushroom. So here at the top we can see the spores, and we have a really cool page there, and those are spores. So those are, a lot of times, because we do learn a lot about plants, we have more knowledge of plants. So spores are like the seeds of that fungi. And then eventually, the seeds are being produced by the mushroom. The mushroom will eventually release the spores. The spores get released. And once they find a host or a nutrient, a source for them to eat, they'll start creating webs and networks. And then eventually, over time, once the mycelium has all the right conditions, they'll start to kind of clump up together, come together really tight to form a mushroom. And then the life will continue like that. And I think you had a really good point about comparing it to an apple tree.
Right, so we can think of it almost like a tree that has fruit. So the tree is there all of the time, and then sometimes it has a fruit to reproduce. That's the reproductive part. So when we're thinking about a fungus, the part that we see, the mushroom, is the reproductive part. Instead of seeds, it makes spores. And spores are so small that you can't see them. But really cool, they can produce millions of spores. So sometimes we can see a dusting of spores because there's so many that they've piled up, and we can see the colors of them. And if you look on that paper, you can see they're all different shapes and sizes and colors, and that could be to attract insects to help carry you far away, or float in the wind, or maybe stick to a person as they're walking by and be carried. So they've evolved lots of ways to get those spores out into the environment. So if you're growing like a commercial grower, when you go into your grow room, you would have a mask on and protect yourself, because with lots and lots of mushrooms, you'd be breathing them in. We're breathing in spores all day, every day. They're in the environment, they're in the soil, they're floating in the air, they're in the clouds, they're everywhere on Earth.
But if you're just growing a small amount, like just as a hobby,
Right.
you don't have to worry too much?
You don't have to worry too much. Of course, there's always exceptions. If you're immunocompromised or things like that, you would want to take extra precautions. But in general, it's safe to grow them a small amount at home. Yeah. So the mushroom is mostly hidden. It's below ground, or within the wood, or within this substrate here in this grow bag. The white part that we see is the mycelium of the fungus. So it starts out as a spore, It gets released out, it lands somewhere, hopefully in a good place for it to start to grow, and it grows, and hopefully it runs into a compatible mating type. Now, a really cool thing about mushrooms is they have many, many mating types, and this allows them to persist in the environment. There is a mushroom that we can find in the wild here that scientists have studied called the split gill fungus, and scientists discovered that fungi has 24,000 sexes. That's a lot. Pretty amazing. So the spores go out, hopefully they meet a compatible mating type. They get together, and that one cell starts to grow and makes a thread-like structure that is called hyphae. And the hyphae grows, and it gets bigger and bigger, and then it grows into the white mass that you can see here. And this is mycelium. So all of the hyphae has grown together, and now we can see the body of the fungus. So remember, fungi don't have a stomach. They're digesting in their environment. So those threads searching for food, oh, maybe not this way, maybe we go this way, and they can sort of stop growing and tell the other cells, let's go this way, and they go. And when they're ready to reproduce, they come together and they form this mushroom.
So fungi is like all fungi. You can think of it as animal. A mushroom is just that reproductive structure of the fungi. So you can think of it, if we were to compare them and think of like a plant-like, the mushroom is like the fruit or flower. Because not all fungi produces mushrooms. Just a certain amount of fungi produces mushrooms. Because some are just doing their thing in a different way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of our soil-dwelling fungi, the ones that are partnered with the plants, they never make a fungus, like a mushroom that we can see with our eyes. They just remain in the soil and do their thing. So because they're hidden, it makes it hard to study and observe them, right? So toadstool is another, like a common name, you could say. It's our word, which in many languages we use different words to describe what something is. So a toadstool would be exactly that mushroom there. And when we say fungi, we could say fungi, fungi, fungus, it's all the same. And yeah, it's fun to say.
So mushrooms, because those are the ones we see and the ones that we're growing, they can show up in different ways. So generally we have the stem, and then we have the cap. And sometimes some of them might have gills, which is the ones that we're gonna be working today, the oyster mushrooms, they have gills. Some have pores, so instead of having those like ridges, they have pores. And some have what is called, they call them teeth, and that's another structure that can show up. Like our lion's mane is a mushroom that doesn't have gills or pores, it has teeth. We have mushrooms that grow all seasons, and some, the most that we know and we like grow during the summer, but here you want to talk about our...
Yeah, so in the middle is a mushroom that I found growing. If you look in the back, you can see white, that is snow. So there are mushrooms that will grow in the winter. Just like plants have preferences for temperature or amount of light, fungi are the same in that for every season, there's different mushrooms that are blooming. So when we think of these fungal bodies, these mushrooms, it's just a very special way to get your spores out into the world. It's a way to protect them until they're ready to be released, and it'll grow, and then when they're ready to be out, the fungus opens up and they go out. Each species of mushroom is very different. So it takes a lot of time and looking over and over and over again. Millions, yeah, they're probably more diverse than insects or like one of the most diverse living things on Earth. So there are, a few that are easily recognizable that we can say, like confidently identify in the beginning, but really you have to learn each species one by one. It's like getting to know your plants. I think that here in America, people have been taught to be afraid of them, and we don't really learn about them in school, and like education around them is sort of, it's hard to. So touching mushrooms, unlike plants, you're not gonna get a rash. You're not going to get stabbed by thorns, so that's nice. You can pick up any mushroom, even the deadly mushroom. You can pick it up and look at it. You can smell it, examine it, and really get to know it. And so that's nice about them. I like that I'm not going to get a rash.
If it's bad, will you like have like a reaction to the odor if it's bad for you, or?
No, you have to eat it. Eat it and metabolize it. So once it goes into your system and then your body starts to break it down and put it into you, that's when it makes you sick.
So if you have like upset symptoms, then like, you just take a very small amount. If you're unsure, I'm just curious, like how you, like if you were just going through the woods and you saw mush, oh, it's just like, what should you do? Like.
You could take a picture of it, of the top, of the underside. What is it growing from? There's a lot of things that go into identifying them, and that is like a whole nother thing to study, and would take a whole another 2 hours to just talk about a few. But yeah, it's like getting to know your friends. It takes time. It takes really going out there a lot. And you know, in the books, they look very different than when we're outside, because that is like the glamour shot. And when we go out, the weather affects them and they grew a little funny. And so it just takes a lot of time to get to know each one.
And also just a good approach or mentality that I've told myself, because even as I'm learning, I've come to learn that even some of the deadly mushrooms are still medicinal, just in a very different use. So the concept of not necessarily, but it's like the idea of like a good mushroom and a bad mushroom is not really real. It's about you getting to know that organism and like getting to know it for what it is. Because there are some like that we know very like that are super familiar and like, but a general rule, if you don't know it, don't eat it. Definitely, yeah.
And also, actually, the majority of like deadly ingestion of mushrooms is because people from other continents are like, oh, I know this mushroom is good here, so they come here and they're like, I know this mushroom is good, and it's actually a deadly version of it. So, and I've been taught that you don't disturb it, because when you pull a mushroom, you can actually sort of like destroy their environment, you know? So it's like, you know, much like you don't stomp around on plants and things like that, like you treat them with the same respect.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. That does happen. I don't know if everybody heard what she said up here. It was that a lot of the mushroom poisonings that happen in the U.S. are people that come from other continents, and the fungi look very similar, but we're growing someplace else. So people will mistakenly think that it is a mushroom they know because it looks so much the same. So it really takes getting to know the mushrooms in the place that you are, because just looking at them sometimes can be hard to recognize those differences. And I will say one beautiful thing about the most deadly mushroom, the death cap is what they call it. That mushroom is one of the mushrooms that are partnered with the trees. So that mushroom is helping those trees to persist in tough times and get water and maintain health. So without the fungal partners, the plants probably wouldn't be able to survive. So maybe it's really scary for us, but for the trees, if you were a tree, you would be happy to have that fungal partner. So looking at mushrooms as more than just food and the environment, what can we learn from fungi about the environment, about the plants that they're growing with, or what the mushroom's growing on, a bug or an animal carcass or whatever.
Because there are those plants, and I think us in general, I think we wouldn't be alive or we wouldn't be the humans we are today without the help of fungi. But just one concrete example, there is this plant called the ghost pipe, which relies on the Rosola family fungi to get its food. It's a plant that doesn't have any chlorophyll, so it needs the fungal mycelial network to get its food because it's unable to get food from the sun, which is one plant that I love sharing with the kids because we have it in the forest. But that plant relies on a mushroom or a fungi to be able to survive.
What plant is it that grows?
Ghost pipe.
Oh, ghost berry. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we see that a lot through the plant kingdom. Like a lot of orchids need fungi to help the seeds, and it's a lot. All these partnerships are really beautiful, and learning about fungi really helped me to see the whole world in a different way, because fungi are not just eating their food, they live in their food and so connected to the things that they're next to and around them that we can just, by studying them, we see the world in a different way. It's really fascinating. So.
And they are also a great source of food. So the ones that we could eat offer a lot to us. For me personally, as a person, I don't consume any meat, so I need to find other ways to get protein and other minerals. So I rely a lot on mushrooms to like complement my diet. And not just food, not like just nourishment, but also a lot of healing. Oysters and shiitakes are ones that I work the most with, offer a lot of potential medicinal properties, which we can share later.
So this is the oyster mushroom. That's what we're going to be growing today. We'll be making a kit for everyone to take home. You can see an example of what the spawn bag looks like here. So again, the white is the mycelium that's grown out in that nutrient-rich food for the mushroom to eat. And when it's ready, it'll make the mushroom, and you can pick it and cook it. The oysters are great for people that are just learning how to grow mushrooms because they grow really fast. They're really not picky about the food that they eat. So again, this mushroom is really easy to grow. It grows fast. And the really fun thing about growing oyster mushrooms is that this fungus is not picky about what it eats. So the fungi that are partnered with the trees, we can't grow those. We can just grow the ones that are decomposers. So these fungi, you can grow them on all kinds of things. Like I said, they're not picky. So here, this is grown out on a grain spawn, which is like millet. You could use cardboard. You could use banana leaves, oats.
If there are a brewery nearby, like span grain sometimes can also be hops, yeah. Rice hulls, yeah.
And so it's very versatile. Like whatever you have available to you, you can probably use the oyster mushroom to grow on. And other species of fungi are more picky about what they're eating, what kind of food that you give them. So a little bit more difficult to grow. This oyster mushroom that we're gonna make a little mushroom garden today is easy, and hopefully everybody has great success.
Just like any living thing, every fungi would have a specific needs. However, the oyster mushrooms are the most like generalist in terms of like what they can eat. So like all the different things that we mentioned are okay for oysters, but other mushrooms might need a specific thing. Yeah, the substrate. Yeah, substrate is another word for food. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah. And like Michael mentioned, they are just rich in nutrients. So a very small amount of mushrooms, about 100 grams of mushrooms, has 3 grams of protein, which is a lot of protein. So it really is an excellent highly nutritious food source, protein source, all those vitamins and minerals that are really good for us, we can get them just from a mushroom, which is really fun. All right. So let's get into it. So we're going to start with these spawn bags. So this is, someone has already taken the spores. North Spore has done this for us in a sterile environment because we want everything to be clean to give the fungus the best chance at survival. Because in the environment, remember, there's spores and germs everywhere. So we need to start very clean. And so North Spore has taken the spores and grown them out already for us. So here in this bag, we have grain and we have the fungus that has already grown out. We see the white, and we're gonna take that and we're gonna add it to straw. And so the straw is gonna be the food for this fungus. And we're going to need a container. Today we're going to do it in a bag, but at home you could use any sort of vessel. You could use an old takeout container or a milk jug or a glass jar, really anything that you have available to you. As long as you keep it clean, it'll grow. And the other thing we need to grow mushrooms is time. It does take time and patience and observation. It's really fun. So the question was, with the recyclable materials, should we use soap and water or should we use isopropyl alcohol? And the cleaner you can get it, the better. So if you don't have the alcohol, the high concentrate alcohol available to you, you could use soap and water. Really whatever you have to give the fungus the best chance to not have contamination, or can think of it as like everything wants to eat this food source. So we want to get rid of all of the other stuff and just give the fungus the good head start. So the best we can to keep it clean.
Right, it's an opportunity to understand those relationships, because I'm imagine a lot of those relationships have been built over huge lengths of time, and we haven't really been looking at them and really understanding that. So it's like just now is when we're starting to understand a little bit more how they work. And they're showing up a lot of opportunity, because I'm seeing, and we'll probably mention later, other uses that fungi is trying to help us humans stay on this planet a little bit longer.
And fungi can get moved around. If you have trees that come with soil, fungi can be in that soil and get moved around to different parts of the world. So it does happen where, you know, the mycorrhizal or the plant partner fungi will be moved from one place to another. But for us making it do it, it's hard for us to do that, right?
And there are fungi that grow, like I have plants in my house, and there are a couple different fungi in the soil pots. So sometimes I see little mushrooms in the pots, but those are not the ones that we're eating. Yeah. So the thing about using wood is that wood itself is another food source. So it's a little bit tricky using wood to grow like oysters. There are mushrooms that you can grow on logs, but that's another conversation we can talk about. But today, like, we're trying to show you the oysters, which are like a really intro into the growing and understanding their life cycle, so that maybe eventually you can grow on wood. Because there are some mushroom varieties that like to grow on wood.
Yeah, just like plants have their preferences for the type of soil that you use for them or the amount of light, it's the same thing with the different species of fungi. So it really, again, it's like getting to know your friends. It takes some time, and you just really need to get to know each species and what they need, what they like, what they don't like. Yeah. So we did an extra step. This isn't always necessary, but again, we want to give the mushroom mycelium the white stuff that's going throughout the substrate and eating it. We want to give it the best chance. So what I did before I came here, yesterday I took this straw and I put it in a laundry bag that I got at the dollar store, $1. And I put it in a big tote with some hydrated lime. And what this does is it pasteurizes it. It takes the pH level really high and kills all of the little germs and the other fungi that we don't want to grow, and lets our oysters have like a jump start, a clean start, have their food nice and ready for them. You want to make sure if you're going to do it this way, you want to use hydrated lime, because garden lime often has lots of magnesium in it, which will stunt the growth of the mushroom, and it also the chemicals in the garden lime is different, so it doesn't really get the pH high enough for the fungus. You want to wear gloves when you do that, and when you dump out the water, obviously be careful. You don't want to burn your plants with this. There are other ways of doing it. You could, if you wanted to pasteurize it, you could use wood ash is another way. You soak it in water with the wood ash. You could boil it in a big drum outside and make a basket if you're doing a whole bunch of straw or banana leaves or whatever you have. You could boil it, or if you have a pressure cooker, you can do it that way. Not necessarily a step that you have to do, but it certainly helps to increase your success rate.
So yeah, so when you're growing in a non-sterile environment, like the ones that we're trying to grow, there are already free-floating spores in the air all the time. And that is there to make sure that whatever living organic matter is anywhere gets consumed and recycled back into the cycle. When we are trying to grow our mushroom, we have to make sure we need to try our best to give it clean food, because otherwise those free spores that are floating are going to have, they're really good already catching anything, so they would have an advantage if we are not giving our mushrooms a really clean food source. That's why it's to ensure that you have a better outcome to get these mushrooms, the ones that we're trying to grow. It's good to start with a clean food source.
The other thing that this is doing is soaking the straw, because fungi love moisture. So the straw comes very, very dry, and soaking it in the water allows the straw to rehydrate and hold a lot of moisture. And so the reason we put it in this mesh bag is so we can drain all of the water out, and we want it to still be really wet. So when you squeeze it, maybe a drop or two comes out. You don't want it to be dripping a lot of water, but a drop or two, so that food for the fungus is also nice and moist. Not too dry, not too moist, and finding the balance is important. Too wet, it'll get soggy and sort of drown and grow lots of mold. So, all right.
So today in the practice, once we get out of this room and go to the back where we'll get to build our lasagna, we're going to be using these. So this block can serve kind of like a seed, and we're gonna be building our lasagna with a little bit of hay, a little bit of substrate or mycelium, and then a little bit more hay, a little bit more of the substrate with the mycelium. And this is to make sure that all that food has some contact with the mycelium as well.
The mycelium is the stuff on the bottom, is that correct?
So in this bag, we have both the grain, that was the food source, and then all of the white is the mycelium.
All the white. Okay.
All of the white, yeah. Yeah. So here, the grain is the food. And then the mycelium is just growing everywhere. It's trying to eat the grain. And if we were to bite this and just like let it grow, like this is getting ready to fruit soon. As you see the concentrations on top, this will make mushrooms. But what we're doing is that from this one bag, we can make a lot more. We can make up to 10, 20 bags, which is hopefully we'll get to do that. Yeah, we will get to do that.
So we're going to give it more food, right? Because the fungus is going through the environment looking for something to eat. And eventually the food will run out in this bag. And what you'll be left with is something that's like almost like a brick. It turns into a hard mass. But we'll get to that. So we're going to have the straw that's nice and moist. There's water there. Then the mycelium, we'll put a little bit of that, more straw, and we're going to push it all in because it's using energy to go out and search for the food. So we don't want it to have to stretch really far because it takes a lot of energy to do that. So we'll smush it all in so it doesn't have to reach too far into our container. So mushrooms, like us, use oxygen. They breathe. So we need to make sure that they can get air to do the exchange. Just like if we were in a plastic bag, we would not be happy. So we need to make sure they can breathe. Mushrooms really need it to be moist. They need humidity. So while we're waiting, when you take your bag home, you're going to want to put it in a place that is out of direct sunlight. You want to have it about 60 to 70 degrees, which is about the temperature in our house. So you have it out of the direct light, and you want to keep it really moist the whole time. You're going to watch it for anywhere between 10 and 21 days. And then the bag will start to look like this. It'll be all white all through the bag. Maybe it's more white on the top, and that's the mycelium that is getting ready to make a fruiting body or a sporing body and give you mushrooms. So do you have anything to add to that? All right. All right, so after your maybe 21 days, now, this is how we're going to keep it humid. Lots of options here. So we can see here, this first bag, you just see the grains in the top. You can't see the mycelium yet because it's really, really small. As it grows and spreads, it'll start to turn more white. Like here you see more white on this side. It's growing. It's eating the food. So how do we keep it humid without drying it out? That is always the trick. So this is my favorite method. My friends at EB Fungi came up with this. You take a dish, you put another dish inside, like a bowl. You can maybe see it on the bottom. You got like a pan and then a bowl to put this up on it so it's on the bowl. And you fill the bottom with water. Then you take a towel and drape the towel over the top. The towel will wick up the water and help to keep it moist. That's worked really well for me on my countertop grows. You can also mist it with water around the edges, but you don't want to spray directly on the mycelium or the mushrooms because that'll make them too wet. Other ways you could do it is, here's some chopsticks in the top holding up a plastic bag, and that bag has holes in it because remember the mushrooms need to breathe. If you want to get fancy, you could do it in a tote, like in the top left. It has holes in it, so the air exchange, and I think perlite in the bottom, or you could grow it, put them in a little greenhouse with a humidifier. But again, that fresh air is important. So it's constantly a balance between fresh air, not drying out, keeping them moist enough, not too wet. So for the 10 to 21 days, this stage is important that it's humid, about 80, 85, 90%. But once we're getting ready to make our mushrooms fruit is when we really want to watch them closely. So when it starts to look all white on the top of your bags at home, you're going to want to cut a small hole in the bag. Maybe a little X, you could make like a little inch, or even the smallest hole, they'll grow out of anything, really. If you wait too long, sometimes they'll grow out of this little filter patch here is how they're breathing through this bag. If you wait too long, sometimes they grow right out of there. Like, let me out. And again, we want to make sure no germs, so we'll have a clean scissors or a clean knife.
And just from, you want to make your cut close to where your blocks stop, right? Does that make a difference?
That's a good question. I have done it all different places on the block, and maybe that's something that we can make notes of, like, oh, did it from the top fruit or side fruit? So just observing over time, there's lots of things to wonder about them. Do you usually do it from the top?
No, I haven't done them in bags. Yeah,
So at this stage now, you've gone 21 days. Your bag is all white. Now you've cut the holes in it. Very important you watch closely now, because anywhere from like 2 days to 5 days, you're going to have big flush of mushrooms. It happens really quick, and you don't want to miss it because it's so beautiful to watch. They start out little, small pins and whoosh, get big to get those spores out. So watch them closely. Here's some other options for growing them. A laundry basket, can do that outside in the summer here. It's very humid in Rhode Island in the summertime, and fungi love that. Again, like 80%, 95% humidity, fungi are like, yes, I'm ready to make a fruiting body. Can do it in buckets and stack them up. Can do them in bags. Even like a grocery store bag, you could grow them in that. As long as you make it clean, whatever you got, you can use it. And really, you can grow a lot of food in a very small space. Yeah, they prefer the shade, but sometimes, like, when it's ready to make a fruit, it's ready to make a fruit. And it might grow even if it's not ideal. But it's like our plants. If it doesn't have, like, if you're growing a plant in a pot that's not right in the not right soil, it's kind of not too happy. So.
It will, yeah, depending on the environment, it might act differently. Like the color might be slightly different depending on like the lighting, where it is. Yeah, it could just affect how it grows.
I think that that's fine. They do need some light because the light tells them which way to grow up. Because they want to release their spores by gravity, so that they kind of want to know which way is up, and light tells plants and things what side is up. But they're not phototrophic though. They're gravitropic, which is kind of cool, which means they don't go towards the sun, they go for gravity. Okay. Yeah, so thinking about like your goals for growing, like are you trying to start a mushroom farm and have a business, or are you just growing for fun to experiment or have food for your family or just get to understand mushroom life cycle? Thinking about those goals can help you decide, choose your container and choose what species you're gonna use to grow with. If they don't have enough air, they will look kind of odd. They will get long and sort of stretchy, and the caps never really get big. So fresh air is really, really important for them. And I think I made a lot of mistakes with that in the beginning. I wasn't really getting mushrooms that looked quite right, and it's because they were thirsty for air. So keep it humid and let them breathe. And if you have them more closed up, like in that container over there on the side, which I think that's like a dome for putting over plants. You can, a couple times a day, lift it up and air them out that way too, to help them get rid of that CO2 and get more oxygen in there. All right. So now your bag has grown out, you've cut the bag, you watched closely, and now you're ready to pick your mushrooms. How do we know when to pick them?
So, Just like our vegetables, we want to pick them when they are like their prime time. Because sometimes, depending on that can also determine their shelf life and also maybe their flavor, their taste. So for oysters and also shiitakes, when they have the cap, they kind of start kind of very tucked in, and over time they're kind of opening up. And we kind of want them when they still have just a slightly bent over. We don't want them to be fully up all the way. I don't know if you have a kind of a term or a way to describe.
That's it. What's there?
They look like umbrellas almost.
Right. Yeah. You want them to be kind of like an umbrella.
So you can sort of gauge the maturity or ripeness of it. So again, the mushroom is just a way to get the spores out. So it's protecting those spores until they're ready, and then as it grows, it's stretching out. It has those gills here, right? The spores are made on these gills, so when it's a little baby, it's protecting them, and then as it grows, it's putting them out into the world. So at the end of its life, it's like all way stretched out. Its gills are showing and the spores are going. So we want to get it before it's all the way past.
Because right after that, it's gonna start to rot. And so you wanna make sure you get a good tasty point.
You can cut them from the block, or you can twist it. If it has a little bit of the grain stuck to it, you can just brush it off or cut that part off. So thinking about cooking them. There's lots of ways to do this. When we pick a fresh mushroom, it lasts for about a week in the fridge. You could put it in a paper bag to keep it from drying out. Maybe put it in the crisper drawer. Again, moisture is key to them. And they're really easy to cook with, this species, I think, just because of the variety of things that you can do with it. You can eat it in rice, you can treat it like meat, like dice it up and have a taco with it. You can make soup. If you grow so much, hopefully you do, more than you can eat in a week, you can saute it in a pan and then freeze it, and that will last for quite some time. You can also dehydrate them in the lowest setting in your oven and make sure that they're cracker dry and put them in a container, and that lasts for a really long time. I have a very simple recipe that I will share with you for mushroom bacon. You ready? You ready? All right, mushroom bacon. Make this with your oyster mushrooms. So you toss them lightly in olive oil, smoked paprika, a little pinch of salt, a little touch of sugar. You put them in your oven at 375 for about 20-25 minutes. You flip them halfway. And then now you have crunchy bacon oyster mushrooms. And you can put them on a salad or eat them.
How long do you put them in?
20 to 25 minutes, yeah. Really, there's a lot of ways. And I think, a lot of people say, oh, I don't like mushrooms. And it's because the mushrooms at the store are very different. Just like fruits and vegetables, there's so many different fruits and vegetables that have different texture and flavor. The fungi are just like that. Different mushrooms will taste maybe like seafood or like chicken or shrimps or mushroom. Yeah. So good, yeah. So, do you have a favorite dish? It's hard to pick just one, huh?
It's hard, yeah. I've just been enjoying one of my friends at the farm. My food, which has always had to be vegan. So I love how they always incorporate mushroom into the vegan dishes. So this week we had cashupa, which is a Cape Verdean stew. And mine, instead of all the meat, it had a different assortment of mushrooms, and it was really delicious. But I just love mushrooms in any way. Actually, however, there is one, shiitakes, they have a kind of a strong taste that I'm still getting to know, but I just love them so much. So what I do is that I marinate them, so I let them soak in like a sauce way before, so they take a little bit longer to absorb the flavors, and then after that, they're great.
I've been making on toast in the morning. I'll take oysters or shiitakes or whatever I have, and I slice them really thin, and I put them in a pan with butter, and I'll put some garlic, and I let that simmer on low for a while, right? Have my coffee, do a few things, maybe 20 minutes, half hour or so, come back. I make some toast on good bread and put jam. I've been using fig jam, which is really good, so good. So some jam, and then you put the mushrooms, and you can put like a balsamic drizzle on it, and some goat cheese or a vegan cheese, and that sweet and savory, so good. So good. If you think you don't like mushrooms, give them a try, because they're also different.
So it's a superfood, and then it's also a super connoisseur, right?
Yeah, all kinds of things. Very versatile. Yeah.
And also, it will probably taste a lot better because if you're growing it yourself, you know, you've been giving it so much energy, so much love, that when you try it, it'll probably be a lot different.
Yeah, there's really something about growing your own food that I think it just tastes better. Getting to know it over time. All right, so now you took your mushroom garden in the bag home, you waited the 21 days, you saw it was ready to fruit, you cut the bag, another 5 days, you had a big flush of mushrooms, you ate them, you enjoyed them, now what? Now what? Maybe you can get another flush out of that bag. So as long as there's food for this fungus to eat, it could reproduce again. So you might get another flush in about 2 weeks. So you would let it rest, and then in 2 weeks, you could start the process all over again with keeping it humid and moist and waiting for it to flush. But once it's done, then you can bring it outside. And this is one of my favorite parts of growing this fungus is that nothing is wasted here. So we're going to take this block that it's been all digested and the mushroom spawns all through it, and now we're going to put it outside in our garden or in our plant container on our porch. And this is building healthy soil, adding nutrients, drawing in all those little organisms and bugs and soil things that we all want. Really great for our gardens. And on the right-hand side is Michael's mushroom garden.
Yeah, so at the farm, we have this area near where we keep our chickens for the winter. And the chickens have really carved the soil and exposed some of the roots of the plants that we have there. So on like this side, so this is this one side of the garden, but further back there are a lot of plants. And one of the ways that we are remediating and kind of bringing more life back into that soil is that we put a lot of wood chips, and I use a friend brought me some already like spent and used oyster mushroom blocks, and then I planted them in the wood chip beds, and then I got more oyster mushrooms out of. So, and then they help break the wood chips, and also they're also helping the soil, and then we get food out of that too.
You can also just take the block whole and put it in or break it into pieces and stuff it into the, that's like the bale there. You can stuff it in there and grow it outside. Yeah, it's pretty amazing what the mycelium does for the soil. This is really a, it's fibrous. It's adding all of those good things, diversity in the soil that we need. It enhances microbial life, and it can help to suppress, the oyster mushroom can help to suppress unwanted fungi and helps outcompete those other pathogens. So this is really an amazing amendment for your soils and gardens. And I just love that nothing goes to waste here, so keeps the gift that keeps on giving. Some of there's different varieties of oyster mushrooms. Some are more forgiving. This one, I think maybe in the 50s, it might be okay, but it's gonna grow really slow. Like if conditions aren't right, it's gonna have a hard time, right? And again, you don't want it to dry out, so you would put like the wood chips or cardboard or whatever you got on top so it doesn't dry out from the wind. So here's some other mushrooms that we have grown indoors and outdoors. Maybe we can talk about those.
So these mushrooms right here is another mushroom you can try growing outside. Super easy to do outside. So next year, once it gets warmer again, the wine caps you can grow on wood chips. So if you have wood chips anywhere around your house, you can inoculate your wood chips with wine caps. So at the farm, in the tunnel where we grew tomatoes, in the paths we had wood chips to suppress the weeds. And because we don't want the wood chips there all the time, I want them to eventually break down, I incorporated the wine cap mushroom, which is then breaking down the wood chips. So next year they'll already be way further along the decomposition than they would have otherwise. And as they do that, the mycelium from the wine cap is also helping to build the soil. So that's one of the ways that I've been able to incorporate growing mushrooms at the farm. So then now, even last week, we harvested and now it's in some of the beds in the house, and it's just helping the soil.
And the wine caps are also called garden giants because they can get really big. They're very beautiful and like impressive. And this is a mushroom, a mushroom that's perennial as long as it has food to eat. So if you keep the wood chips going and it has fresh food to eat, it will live year after year. So you could take some of the wood chips and bring them to another part and spread them around. People use the wine caps and oyster mushrooms to bioremediate soils, and build healthy soils. So this is really a way to increase the diversity of microbes and organic matter and really build some great soil.
The idea of a good mushroom and a bad mushroom is not really like very helpful. So you just kind of like these friends, these can be maybe a good introduction to get to know. These we for sure can eat. And then as you get to know more about other mushrooms, then you get to decide if you can eat them or not. But you do not eat any mushroom you don't know. That's a general rule. There's no one way to say, oh, this mushroom, you can eat it or not. There's nothing that you just have to know the mushroom. So as the mycelium grows, it's exerting chemicals to break down its food outside of its body. And sometimes those chemicals that are being released are also beneficial for the plants.
Yeah, each plant and species of fungi you would have to look at separately. But what the mushrooms are doing, right? Like if we think of a tree, it's hard, that wood is so hard, but the fungus comes in and breaks down that wood into small pieces that then the plants can then take up those minerals. So without the fungi, the plants can't reach or be able to eat, like have that nutrient source. The fungi.
So it's overall beneficial usually just to the soil.
Yeah, so like if you see mushrooms growing in your flower pot inside your house, don't eat them unless you planted them there and you can identify them. But so you see these mushrooms and you say, what are they doing here? They're probably breaking down the little pieces of plants or organic matter in the soil and making it into more soil. Those big pieces get broken down into small pieces for the plant.
And as a farmer, in agriculture, we're learning how in the past, like industrial agriculture was a lot about tilling the soil. And what we learned from that is that all that tilling was actually breaking apart the mycelial network that was already in the soil. And that destroys the mycelial network. So over time, we've learned that in order to have healthy soils, we need the fungi in there.
So again, fungi come in all shapes and sizes. This here is the lion's mane mushroom, and you can see it looks like pom-poms. And this is the one that has teeth. Like we talked about in the beginning, instead of having gills, its spores are released from those spines. And that one tastes kind of like crab meat. Like, it's really yum. I love that one. And that's one that science is starting to learn about how it can help your brain. And I will say, you know, there's lots of mushroom coffee and all of these things that you can buy now. And just like our plants, our vegetables, and other foods, the less processed it is, the better. So a mushroom, yeah, growing it yourself or your friend grows it and shares it with you, that whole food, that mushroom, that's the really good beneficial part. You know, and through fungi, they're just so inspiring. They can really teach us a lot, again, about our environments, about the plants they grow with, about each other. Yeah, relationships. And the hidden things. Because remember, even though we don't see that fruiting body, that mushroom, they're within the soil, they're within the substrate, they're all around, all of the time. And that hidden world is just incredibly interconnected throughout different kingdoms or kindoms, because we're all family on this earth. And so fungi have just inspired me to look a little closer and see those hidden connections and the togetherness of it. So some other possibilities here. So oyster mushrooms, like we mentioned, aren't really picky about their food. I think this is the last slide here. Thank you for that. Get talking about mushrooms, I'll just talk all day. So yeah, so to be creative with your mushroom grows, what kind of things do you have available to you? What kind of problems are you trying to solve? There's a woman that's working on, these are cigarette butts, which before we didn't know how to break those down. They just stayed and persisted in the environment. So if we could use fungi, harness that power of the fungus to break down these things that aren't able to be recycled, that's pretty neat. So I would invite you to be curious, experiment. Yeah, people, there's a company called Ecovative that's making products out of mycelium. Instead of plastic and packaging, we could grow mushroom packaging, and then instead of throwing it in the trash, we could put it in our garden. And so, yeah, be curious. Just a quick recap on what we're going to do.
So now that we're almost at the end, we're going to soon move to the back of another room, and we're going to build our own bags. So we're going to get you all a bag that you're gonna fill with some hay. We're also gonna have more bags so you can then put in the mycelium, and then you're gonna put more hay. You're gonna build your lasagna. Because the hay is already moist, we don't need to add water today. But then you're gonna wash that, you're gonna take that home and you're gonna wash it. You're gonna keep an eye on it. Once your bag gets to be all white like this, and you start seeing a concentration of mycelium on top, that's when you're gonna make a cut to allow more oxygen to come in. And then you're gonna still keep an eye on it so you can look at the growth. And then eventually you have your mushrooms, hopefully, and then you harvest them. And then you can try to see if you can get a second flush. And maybe you'll send some pictures and share with us so we can see how you do. But if no one has any more...
What if there's a huge outbreak and it's all over the news? You don't even need that. Mushrooms everywhere.
Unlikely, but that would be cool.
Hey, you never know, right? Come on.
Yeah. So if we don't have any more questions, I think... yeah, one way to stay connected, I think Dee is doing awesome work here in Rhode Island to stay, for us to stay connected and continue to learn more about fungi. So if you take a picture of that QR code, it will take you to Dee's website for the Rhode Island Mycological Society, a really cool group. So you can learn more.
Yeah, if we take walks together and talk about mushrooms and can learn to identify them. We also do poetry and make mushroom art and just love to celebrate kingdom fungi in all of the ways. So if no one has any questions, now we're gonna go build a little mushroom garden for you to take home.